Hey, it's John Warren here with episode 21 of the Corona Files, where we're going to start talking about SEO for high-ticket dropshipping businesses. So as always, if you are watching this along live, feel free to drop in a comment, ask a question, and I will get to those at the end. And as always, if you want to get access to any of the recordings, the video recordings, attachments, other things I throw in to these episodes, go to buildsellgrowrepeat.com/corona-files. And you can get free access to the whole series as it continues on into the future. And a whole bunch of other things that I'll be throwing in there over time. So I want to start talking about SEO today. And this is the first time we've really talked about this. And SEO, of course, search engine optimization, is a huge part of the marketing play for a high-ticket dropshipping business. And it's one of the things that really gets underdone by a lot of the people that teach people how to make high-ticket dropshipping businesses in favor of things like paid ads and stuff like that, which tends to be much more sexy, but in reality is not really the secret to building a really high-volume, high-ticket dropshipping store. You can certainly do very well with paid ads, and you need to do them, and it's a quick way to get your site up and running. But at the end of the day, if you look at really big high-ticket dropshipping stores, and I'm talking about ones that do high 7 figures to 8 figures a year in revenue, they're generating a ton of traffic and their sales via organic search traffic. And so while it takes time to develop that, you need to get started on it early so that you can get to the benefits of it quicker to scale and grow your business. And this really starts doing the right things at the beginning when you're building your website, which is the stage that I'm at now. Sets you up for SEO success down the track. And there's a lot of mistakes that people make when they set up their business the first time, or their website for their high-ticket dropshipping business the first time, that really hurts their ability to rank their site organically down the track. And so there's a lot of things you can do when you're first setting up your site to lay the groundwork for good organic performance down the track without having to go back and fix a whole bunch of things that you got wrong in the beginning. And trust me, the longer you leave it, so the bigger your store gets, and then you realize you have to go back and fix things, it can be a really big pain in the ass. So getting things right from the beginning, while it may be a little bit more time consuming, is really the way that you need to go. And so I want to start walking you through some of those things in this episode, and we're going to just jump now into a really quick little presentation I've just thrown together where we talk about this. So SEO for high-ticket dropshipping sites, and keep in mind I'm talking specifically about high-ticket dropshipping sites. These are e-commerce sites, and so SEO needs to be done in a particular way that suits an e-commerce site. This is different to, so if you're somebody in the SEO space, you need to do SEO in a different way for high-ticket e-commerce sites, which tend to have dropshipping sites, which tend to have a lot of individual pages on them, product pages, collection pages, content pages. It's very different to doing SEO for, say, a local service business or even a national service business, which may only have a handful of pages on it and does not need to rank nationally as we do with high-ticket dropshipping sites. So the SEO for these sites is really broken down into 4 areas. And I'm going to really dive into, not today, but over coming episodes, I'm going to dive into each of these 4 areas in a lot of depth, break them down into the individual things that you need to do as we go on. So this is, for me, as I mentioned, this is like a really big part of the marketing play. But the 4 areas are on-page SEO, which is kind of like, a bit of an umbrella for a range of things, and some of the other 3 elements kind of fit into it as well. But on-page SEO is about optimizing the content and HTML code of individual pages on your site to help them rank better. And so when we're building our site for the first time, there's a lot of opportunities to do a lot of the on-page SEO tasks at the beginning so you don't have to come back and do them later. Technical SEO is about helping search engine spiders to access, crawl, interpret, and index your site and pages so that they can rank on Google, Bing, wherever it might be. And so there is a little bit of overlap between on-page and technical SEO, but technical SEO can be about things like page speed. For example, is a technical SEO thing. It can also have to do with the code of your site as well, and a range of other things. Now, content SEO, once again, this is a kind of one that I made up, I guess. It's kind of like on-page SEO, but when I think about a high-ticket dropshipping site, for me, on-page SEO is a lot about product pages and collection pages, which make up the bulk of the individual pages on your site. Content SEO, in my mind, though, is more about other content pages that you develop that are not product pages or collection pages, and you approach those a little bit differently to the product and collection pages. So I break that off separately. And so this SEO is about developing specific content pages to give search engines higher quality content to rank and index. One of the downsides of an e-commerce site is that you can only do so much with a product page. Product pages can't really rank for a lot of really high volume search terms. So you need to give search engines other pages where you can be a lot more in depth with content to rank for those higher volume search terms. And this is one of the mistakes, I think, one of the things that a lot of beginner high ticket dropshippers really miss. They come into it with the expectation that all of their product pages are going to start ranking for really high volume search terms. I'm going to bust that bubble right now. They don't. The reason most high ticket dropshipping businesses don't ever rank well is that they have the wrong, they have a misunderstanding about what it takes to rank for the search terms that deliver a lot of traffic, which can, if you've got a good sales funnel set up, can deliver a lot of conversions. And they think they're going to do that with product pages. And I'm here to tell you right now, with some exceptions, you really can't do that. And I'll get into that a little bit more in a moment. And then the last one is off-page SEO. So that's about sending search engines signals from other respected parts of the internet that say your site is relevant, trustworthy. And so primarily, this is about developing backlinks from external sites pointing to your sites. And you need to do that, once again, to really rank sites for high volume search terms. And ironically, it's very hard to develop a lot of backlinks without content pages that are not product or collection pages. So once again, one of the reasons why a lot of high-ticket dropshipping businesses never generate or develop many backlinks is because they don't have the right content on their site that people want to link to. Most external sites, blogs, other content sites, etc., people with an audience don't generally want to link to your product pages on a high-ticket dropshipping site because, one, it's not your product, it's not a unique product, and people don't generally like linking to pages that are overtly commercial in nature. So that's why we need the content SEO. But some of those things are down the track things. So when we're building our business for the first time, which is the stage we're at episode 21, we don't want to worry too much about content SEO, off-page SEO, and even a lot of technical SEO. In the beginning, we're mostly focused on getting the on-page SEO element right. And the reasons, kind of the two early ones to get right, is really the on-page SEO and the technical SEO. And the reason for that is that you don't really start working on the content SEO and the off-page SEO until your site's up and running, it's live, and you've got a site that you can go out there and find backlinks for and all that sort of business. And so a lot of people, they miss some of the on-page SEO, they don't get the technical SEO stuff right, and then they try and go and do the more content marketing, backlink building stuff. And they make strides there, but because their technical SEO is not good, or their on-page SEO is not quite right, that can actually detract from the value of developing a lot of backlinks. And technical SEO issues can really be the difference between ranking number 1 on the first page of search results and ranking number 5 on the first page of search results, which is a large difference in the amount of traffic you're going to get for that keyword. So these things are all very important, and we want to get them as right as we can from the start. So in this is going to be a multi-part, within this series, a multi-part series of episodes just about SEO. So hang in there. We're not going to get through it all today, but we want to start looking at some of the things you need to do when you're building your site, and also when you're uploading products to your site. Because as I said, your product pages are some of the first pages you're going to develop on your site, along with your collection pages. And there's some things that you want to start doing for those when you're putting the data about your products onto them. And this does save you time down the track. So if you don't upload, when you first upload your live products that you're getting from suppliers that you're going to sell, if you don't set them up properly in the beginning, you're going to have to come back and fix this down the track. And if you're 12 months, 2 years in when you realize you need to fix this, it can sometimes actually be a lot more work than getting it right in the first place. And so get it right from the start. And that means that, one, your site will rank faster, and it will rank better when it does start ranking faster. So let's get started. The first element is product images, right? So product images do play a role in SEO because they're content that appears on your page. And one of the first things you're going to do is, when you go to upload products, of course, you need to upload product images. And there's some elements that you need to get right when you're uploading your products that you don't want to have to change later, that relate to SEO. So, you know, when you get approved with a supplier, you're then going to get access to all of the images for the products you're going to sell off them. And there are other product data like product titles, prices, descriptions, part numbers, all of that sort of stuff, which you're also going to upload. Now, with images, Google doesn't see images, or other search engines don't see images like you or I do. Like Google's algorithm doesn't actually have eyeballs. It doesn't look at an image and infer from, like our eyes do, what that image is about. You have to tell Google what an image is about. And of course, images themselves can rank in Google Images, and that is actually a traffic source. Google Images is actually one of the largest used, while it's part of the overall Google search, it would rank itself as one of the largest search engines if it was separate on the internet. So, and you absolutely can rank your product images not only on the SERP page, but also just within the Google Images search. And people do get traffic and sales this way. So now I've put on here the image size as the first dot point here. Look, that's not technically that's not an SEO thing. I've just put it here because when you get images from a supplier, you want all the product images on your site to be the same size from an aesthetic perspective. But also there is a size requirement for Google for product images for Google Shopping, which is one of our other traffic sources that we're going to use. So if your product images are too small, your products can get suspended or banned from Google Shopping, right? So you need to resize all your product images to the same size, put them on a white background, and avoid putting things like watermarks, brands, or other text on them. Once again, that can make it difficult to advertise, to use those product images on Google Shopping, or even, depending on how much text you put on them, places like Facebook and other networks. So I tend to resize my images to 800 by 800 pixels. You want a square as well, not a rectangle. You want square images. And that's a size that generally is not too big, but is not too small, right? You don't want giant product images because the file size is going to be very large, and that's going to weigh down your site speed load time, which is a technical SEO element. Now, the next bit is one that people often get wrong. And this is where we do get, at this stage, a little bit time consuming. We add a bit of time here, but in the long run, it's a good thing to do because you can't go back and change this easily. This is a real pain to change down the track. Now, your image should have a unique and descriptive file name. So the actual name of the file before you upload it into Shopify or whatever e-commerce platform you're using should be unique. So usually, often you'll get files, images from suppliers, and they'll have a file name that's just a random string of letters, numbers, and it doesn't really mean anything when you read it. Well, that doesn't matter for us because we use our eyes to interpret what the image is about. But once again, Google can't do that. So it does read the file name when it crawls your site. That file name goes into the code of your site and Google reads it. And Google can use that to help it understand what that image is about. And so putting keywords, descriptive terms, the image name into your image file name will help Google to know, aha, that's what this image is. And now I can match that up with actual search terms that people are making online. So you want to give every image a unique and descriptive file name. So unique means even for the same product, so if you got 5 images for a product, they should all have a slightly different name. And you can include some descriptive words in the file name, right? So descriptive may mean talking about the color of the product, the size of the product, what materials it's made out of, what shape it is, just some additional descriptive words that people might use when they're searching for the type of product that you sell. And of course, if you're doing it following on from yesterday's episode, you'll have already done some keyword research and you'll have some insight into the types of search terms that people use. So every image should have a unique and descriptive file name, which means you're going to have to change those before you upload the products into Shopify, because once they're uploaded into Shopify or any other platform, you can't change the file name. It's there, it's set, and the only way you can change that is to re-upload the image again and change it on the product page, which is a real pain in the butt to have to do in any sort of volume. So once again, doing this in the beginning saves you time down the track. And I should say all of the things I'm talking about here, if you're outsourcing your product upload task, this is something a virtual assistant can do for you. You don't have to do it for yourself. You can definitely outsource this. And I'm going to walk through the outsourcing of the product uploads, which will include this sort of stuff in a future episode. Now, every image should also have unique and descriptive alt text, right? So once a product's uploaded into Shopify or whatever platform you're using, you can associate some alt text with it, which once the alt text is used, basically it loads, if there's an issue with the image loading, the alt text will load on the page, and that tells people what the image would have been about. But it's also used for people who are sight impaired and use a page reader, and that can tell them what the images on the page are about if they can't actually see them. But it also serves a third purpose. Google and other search engines read alt text, right? So once again, this can be an additional way for you to tell Google what the images on your page are about, what they are and what they're about. And so you want to give a descriptive alt text for your images. You don't want to leave it blank. It's an opportunity to get some keywords in there and tell Google something more about your page. So in the same way that you would have a unique and descriptive file name, you want to have a unique and descriptive alt text for each image that you have. And what a lot of people will do with this is they'll use an app, like an SEO app or something like that on their Shopify store to automatically insert alt text onto images when images are uploaded. Now, theoretically, there's not anything wrong with that, but what a lot of those tools will do is for each product, they'll just put the same alt text on every image. So let's say a product has 10 images on it, which is not unusual. It will put the same alt text on each of those images, and that's a bit of a lost opportunity. So while it might be better than nothing, it's a lost opportunity. One, that's all just adds to your duplicate content, but also it's not unique. Google likes unique information. It doesn't like repetitious information because repetition doesn't add any value. So as much as possible, you want to make content you put on your site fairly unique. Now, the final thing that I've put in here is actually, and I should say it's not a dot point here, but I did talk about it in an earlier episode. You want to compress your images before you upload them. So once again, I use a desktop app called Image Optim, which I shared in an earlier episode. So if you didn't watch that, log in, download access to these recordings, and you'll be able to get the link to what I use and some other tools to do this. But you want to get your images compressed down to a good small size so that your page doesn't load slowly. Once again, that technical SEO side of things. And then finally, if you're going to use videos on your product pages, which is absolutely a fine thing to do, videos are super awesome because obviously they can give people a walkthrough of the video. You could have video reviews, all of that sort of business. They can be very powerful for the customer and increase your conversion rate. But the problem with videos is if you use just the standard embed of like a YouTube video or something like that on Shopify, it adds a ton to your page size, right? So, and it slows your site down a lot. And I'm talking, sometimes I've seen 3-4 seconds, the page can be slowed down in additional load time by just having a single video on the page. So that's not the way to do it. There is a way that you can embed videos on your product pages so that the JavaScript and all of the code associated with that doesn't actually load when the page itself loads, right? It only loads when the customer clicks on the video and selects that they want to watch that particular video. Now, this requires some coding. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put some example code for you that works on Shopify in with the recording of this particular episode. And if you want to get that code, all you need to do is go to buildsellgrowrepeat.com/corona-files, and you can get access to that code. It'll be in an attachment to this particular episode. You can download it and then install it into your Shopify site. And that will make videos that you put on your product pages extremely light and thin, so they don't weigh down your page load time anywhere near as much as they would do without that. So once you've sorted out the images, you want to then get onto your product page content, right? So product page content, by this I mean any text that appears on your product page. So product titles, descriptions are the primary two areas that you want there. And where the content of your product page, this is both an on-page issue and a technical SEO thing. So two parts of technical SEO that we want to deal with and make sure that we deal with are called duplicate content and also thin content, right? So you might have heard of these things. Duplicate content refers, is talking about for each page on your site, the content on it a majority of that content should be unique. And that means it shouldn't appear anywhere else on your site, or that at least that Google can find, and we'll get into no indexing and all of that sort of business in a future episode. But it also shouldn't be content that appears anywhere else on the internet either. Now, having duplicate content on your site in and of itself will not generally earn you a penalty. So we don't want to stress overly much about this. A lot of people will say, oh, if I have duplicate content on my site, I'm going to get a big penalty from Google or something. Look, honestly, that rarely happens. That only happens in the most spammy of cases where people are outright ripping off other websites. Generally, if you have duplicate content on your site, what it's going to mean is not necessarily that you're going to get penalized, but just that Google doesn't give as much value to the pages on your site, or it decides just not to index them because it's not fresh or new content. So while it may not be a massive negative problem, what duplicate content does is it just weighs down your site and means a lot of your pages have no opportunity to rank, or they detract from pages that you've really set up with unique content. So we want to avoid duplicate content as much as is humanly possible. And we also want to avoid what is called thin content. So thin content was dealt with by Google in, I think it was the Panda update going back a few years. And what that refers to is pages that don't really add any value. As in, it's a page, it doesn't really have any content on it. There's very little value in it. Google doesn't really understand what it's about. And so thin content pages, once again, if you have a lot of them, can weigh down your site's overall SEO performance. And when they brought out that update, some very big sites got hit really badly. So eBay was one of the ones when that update went through that they lost something like 30 to 40% of their traffic overnight because Google deemed they had a lot of thin content pages on their site. And Google said, well, these pages, we just don't want them in our index. They de-ranked them all. And eBay lost a ton of traffic. And at a time where I think Amazon was really starting to knock them out of the market anyway. So we want to avoid thin content and duplicate content. So to do that, we need to make sure that there is enough content on every page on our site, or on as many pages as we want to index as possible, but also that the majority of that content on each page is mostly unique. So for me, for product pages, I want to aim for product descriptions must be more than 300 words long, which is sort of the level that it's generally understood to not be thin content. But me personally, I ideally want them to be more than 500 words, and they should be at least 80% unique. Now, there is no hard number published by Google that says at what point does a page become duplicated, right? What percentage of the content needs to be the same for it to be duplicate content? Nobody knows that, right? Really don't know. So I tend to aim for a high number. Now, there will often be some elements of the page that are duplicated, but for me, I find that if it's at least 80% unique, I'm probably in a safe ground to have just a small amount of duplicate content there, and that's not going to weigh down the page overall. Product titles need to be H1 tagged. Amazingly, there are some old Shopify themes that don't do that automatically. Product titles need to be H1 tagged, and you should only have H1 on each H1 on each product page. Now, for a high-ticket dropshipping store, generally you're going to want the product's brand name and the model name or number, and one or two descriptive words and the product type in your product title. And the reason why I say brand name and model name or number is that product pages, and this goes to the last point, product pages do not rank well for high volume generic search terms. So you shouldn't attempt to rank them for those search terms, right? So primarily what product pages are going to rank really well for are very specific search terms about that specific product. For the majority of high ticket products, that's going to be the brand name and the model name. Now, if you have products that are not branded, you're going to have to select some very long tail, meaning there's a number of words, specific search terms that are very specific to describing that product to put in the product title and try to rank for. Any other subheadings on the page should be H2 or H3 tagged in descending order. You want to also avoid large chunks of repetitive text that appears on all product pages. Now, this is known as boilerplate content, and even though it's not the product description, it will still count as duplicate content. So what we see with a lot of high-ticket stores is on the product page, they'll have tabs. They'll have a tab description, and in one tab, there will be, and I'll demonstrate this when we walk through the site. On one tab, there'll be the product description, and then they might have another tab for their shipping and returns policy, another tab for their price match guarantee, another tab for their sort of why buy from us or USP sales pitch. Now, there's nothing wrong with having the tabs themselves, but what happens in those circumstances is that they then put their entire shipping and returns policy, which might be, 300 or 400 words long, into one of the tabs, and then they'll put another massive chunk of text into the price guarantee tab, and that Google's reading that text and thinking it's part of the content for every single page on the site, right? So if your product description is only 300 words long, and then you've got 500 words of other text on the page that appears on every other product page on your site, that content is going to look like duplicate content, right? And because there's more of that than there is actually a product description, a majority of the words on the page are not going to be unique. And so there's a chance that Google will think that a lot of the product pages on your site are duplicated because they have a high amount of repetitive content on there. So what you want to do is try and avoid that from happening. And when we do the walkthrough on one of the sites I've built, I'll show you how I do that. So those are the main things from an on-page SEO perspective that you want to do on your product pages. Now, it's easy to say a lot of that stuff. Where I'm actually going to show you how to go about developing product descriptions that are unique and all that sort of thing, because that in and of itself is an episode to talk about, and we will absolutely be doing that. Now, the other pages that you're going to be building at the start for your e-commerce site are collection pages. Now, some of this stuff is a bit more something to think about for collection pages. And collection pages are, I think, one of the most underutilized pages on high-ticket dropshipping sites, right? And they present a fantastic opportunity, though. So collection pages are, of course, the pages that you use to sort of segment your overall range of products into different types, different brands, different types within brands that customers will generally want to look through to find individual products based on what they're looking for. And collection pages are usually linked up in your main menu navigation and all of that sort of thing, and they give your customers a way to make their way through their site to the products that they want to find. Well, collection pages, if they don't get any attention paid to them, they become thin content, right? Because there's not much text on a collection page. There's a list of product titles, really, but when you just look at a list of product titles, they don't make much sense in and of themselves. It's hard for Google or any other search engine to determine what is the role of that page, where should it fit into their index, and what does it really mean if you're not putting anything on it, right? The title in and of itself doesn't really give much context to what that page is about. And also, I'll note from a conversion perspective, it's less than optimal to have no content there as well. So collection pages, when they're used really well, can actually double as content pages. And so once again, I'll show you examples of this and how to develop them as we go through. But content collection pages should include more than 300 words of content on them. Once again, that avoids them being determined to be thin content. And once again, I'll say ideally more than 500 words, and they should be unique words and unique copy. And there's all sorts of things you can do with collection pages to put content on them, and you shouldn't be afraid of it. It's not going to stop people from looking at the products on that page if you have some content there. Now, collection page titles need to be H1 tagged again and should include the brand name and or the product type plus 1 or 2 descriptive words. So once again, what collection pages are great to rank for, and you can rank collection pages very well in search engines for higher volume search terms than you can with product pages, right? So the type of terms that collection pages are really good to rank for are product type searches. So let's say what's the product? I'll just look around with you. Right, look, I've got a bag here. It's a messenger bag. It's a laptop bag. So if I've got a site, I mean, the product page for this bag would have a name like crumpler, black, canvas, I don't know, messenger bag. But on my site, I'm then going to have a collection which and in and of itself, that's a very high converting title and keywords to rank my product page for, but there's not going to be a lot of value in that, right? Whereas the collection page that bag might appear on might be messenger bags or messenger laptop bags or messenger style laptop bags, right? And that's going to be a much higher volume search term, which still has a pretty good commercial nature to it. And I want to rank for that search term. And so I can actually I'm not going to do that very well with a product page though. Unless I only sell one of those types of products, I'm really not going to rank a product page very well for that messenger bag generic type of search term. But I can rank a collection page for it. I could also rank another content page for that, which might even be even better, but I can rank a collection page for it. And so I would want to include that type of search term in the title of the collection page. But it may also rank very well for the brand name as well. So I could rank that for crumpler messenger bags if that brand that I'm selling has a range of different styles, colors, shapes of those particular bags. If you do have other subheadings on the page, once again, like on a product page, they need to be H2 or H3 tagged. You definitely, in the same way as product pages, want to avoid having large chunks of repetitive text that appears on all collection pages. Once again, that's going to be determined, that's boilerplate content, and it just adds to the overall duplicated content on your site. So when you're first building your demo high-ticket dropshipping site, you don't necessarily need to put a lot of content on your collection pages at that point. That's a bit of work that you don't really need to do then, because it's not really of any benefit to suppliers, and your site's not really live at that point. But I do recommend doing it very early on in the piece, after you're getting products uploaded onto your site and before you go live with customers. If you've got the time to start developing it, I recommend you do get a head start on it, because that will mean as Google starts to crawl your site, it's going to get a better idea of the quality of your site from an early stage than if you leave it too much down the track, a year down the track, and you go, all right, now it's time to try and rank my collection pages. No, just do it from the start. Get in the habit of doing it, and your site's going to perform a lot better. So that's it for part one here on the SEO, and those are the things that you really want to look at doing as you're building your site, thinking about your site. And I'm going to break down some of those things and demonstrate them on an actual website in the very near future. And we are, of course, going to continue diving into part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5 of high-ticket dropshipping business SEO as we go on as well. So before we wrap up today, of course, if you want to get access to the recordings of the Corona Files, if you're just joining in for the first time here today, this one's probably going to be a bit out of context in and of itself. Go to build, sell, grow, repeat, all one word.com/Corona-Files. If you're watching the video, you'll see it going on the bottom of the screen right now. And you can get access to all of the previous episodes, all of the future episodes, and you can follow them through from the start while I build high-ticket dropshipping businesses. So thanks for checking it out today. We'll be back again with another episode tomorrow. I look forward to talking with you then. See ya.